For over 1,000 years, while empires rose and fell, while plagues swept across continents and wars ravaged the countryside, there was one place where healing knowledge never died. Behind monastery walls, Benedictine monks, Cistercian nuns, Carthusian hermits, they didn't just pray. They cultivated something that would outlast their stone abbeys. They grew physic gardens, carefully tended plots where plants weren't just food or decoration, they were medicine. And here's what most people don't realize. Many of the herbs we're rediscovering today, the ones showing up in research journals and herbal apothecaries, were never actually lost. They were preserved, generation after generation, by people who understood that knowledge without action dies. But plants that heal can be passed down like scripture. Today I'm going to walk you through 15 of these monastery herbs, plants that were so valued, monks risked their lives during invasions to save the seeds. We'll go from the ones that might surprise you, all the way to the plant that was considered the crown jewel of every medieval infirmary garden. And we'll talk about what modern science now confirms about the compounds inside them. This isn't folklore, this isn't superstition, this is botanical history that still grows. Let's begin. 15. Costmary, Tanacetum balsamida. We start with a plant so common in monastery gardens that it earned the nickname Bible leaf, because people would press it between the pages of their prayer books, not for decoration, for function. Costmary has a sharp, minty balsamic scent that kept people alert during long services. But the monks knew it for something else, digestive relief. When someone in the community suffered from sluggish digestion, bloating, or intestinal discomfort, Costmary tea was the first response. The plant contains compounds called sesquiterpene lactones, the same family of chemicals found in artichoke and dandelion, that stimulate bile flow and support liver function. Preparation was simple: a few fresh leaves steeped in hot water after a heavy meal. The flavor is strong, almost medicinal, so it was often blended with mint or lemon balm. Growing it, Costmary thrives in USDA zones 4 through 8. It wants full sun and well-drained soil. The mistake people make is overwatering. This is a Mediterranean herb that tolerates drought beautifully. Plant it once and it'll spread slowly through rhizomes. You can divide it every few years. Who should be cautious? Pregnant women should avoid Costmary in medicinal amounts. It's in the same family as tansy, which has abortifacient properties in concentration. Also, if you're allergic to ragweed or chrysanthemums, this might trigger a reaction. Costmary won't change your life overnight. But if you're looking for a gentle, reliable digestive aid that connects you to 1,000 years of monastic practice, this is it. 14. Levisticum officinale. If you've never tasted Lovage, imagine celery, but deeper, richer, almost savory enough to stand in for meat broth. Medieval monks grew it everywhere, not just for cooking, though they did use it extensively in soups and stews. Lovage was considered a detoxifying herb. When someone was feverish or dealing with urinary tract discomfort or had swollen joints, Lovage root tea was prepared. Modern research shows why. Lovage contains phthalides, compounds that have mild diuretic effects and may help the body eliminate excess uric acid. It's not a pharmaceutical, but as a supportive herb, it has a long, consistent track record. The roots were dug in autumn, cleaned and dried. Monks would simmer them slowly to make a dark, earthy tea. The leaves were eaten fresh or dried for later use. Growing it, Lovage is a perennial that does well in zones 3 through 9. It prefers rich, moist soil and can tolerate partial shade, though it grows taller in full sun, sometimes reaching 6 feet. The mistake people make is planting it in a small space. This is a big plant. Give it room. Who should be cautious? Avoid Lovage if you have kidney disease or are pregnant. The diuretic effect can strain compromised kidneys, and historically it was used to stimulate menstruation. Also, the essential oil is phototoxic. Don't apply it to skin before sun exposure. Lovage is one of those herbs that makes you wonder why it ever fell out of common use. It's hardy, productive, and useful in the kitchen and the medicine cabinet. 13. Horehound, Marubium vulgare. Walk into any monastery infirmary in the 12th century, and you'd almost certainly find horehound hanging in bundles from the rafters. This bitter, woolly-leaved plant was the go-to remedy for respiratory complaints. Coughs, bronchitis, chest congestion. Horehound syrup was given to everyone from children to elderly monks. The active compound is merubian, a deterpene that acts as an expectorant. It doesn't suppress your cough. It helps you cough productively, loosening mucus so your lungs can clear. The preparation was labor-intensive. Fresh or dried leaves were boiled down into a strong decoction, then mixed with honey to create a thick syrup. The taste is intensely bitter, but the honey made it tolerable. Growing it, Horehound is tough. It grows in zones 4 through 9, tolerates poor soil, drought, and neglect. In fact, overwatering is the most common mistake. This plant evolved in dry, rocky Mediterranean hillsides. It wants full sun and excellent drainage. Plant it once, and it will self-seed. Who should be cautious? Horehound is generally safe, but if you're on medications for irregular heartbeat, talk to your doctor first. Merubian can interact with cardiac glycosides. Pregnant women should avoid medicinal doses. You won't find Horehound in mainstream herb shops often, but it's still used by traditional herbalists today. And for good reason. 12. Lady's Mantle, Alchemilla vulgaris. The name alone tells you this was a plant held in reverence. Alchemilla, the little alchemist, because when dew collected in the pleated leaves, it was considered sacred water, used in alchemical experiments and religious rituals. But the monks and nuns valued lady's mantle for something far more practical: women's health. This was the herb given to women experiencing heavy menstrual bleeding, uterine discomfort, or menopausal symptoms. The leaves contain high levels of tannins, astringent compounds that tone mucous membranes and reduce excessive bleeding. It was prepared as a tea, sometimes combined with yarrow or raspberry leaf. The taste is mildly astringent, pleasant enough to drink regularly. Growing it, lady's mantle grows beautifully in zones 3 through 8. It prefers partial shade and moist, well-drained soil. The mistake people make is planting it in full sun in hot climates. The leaves scorch. It's a shade lover in warmer zones. In cooler areas, it can handle more light. Who should be cautious? If you have a history of liver disease, avoid lady's mantle. High tannin content can be problematic. Pregnant women should also skip it due to its traditional use for uterine toning. Modern research is limited, but herbalists still use lady's mantle today, and the experiential evidence across centuries is compelling. 11. Wormwood, Artemisia absinthium. Now we're entering the realm of plants that demand respect. Wormwood has a fearsome reputation, partly because of absinthe, partly because it's named in the Bible as a symbol of bitterness, but in monastery gardens it was indispensable. The primary use? Parasites. Before modern antiparasitics, intestinal worms were a constant problem. Wormwood contains absinthin and thujone, compounds that are toxic to parasitic organisms. Monks would prepare a carefully measured tincture or tea and administer it for a short course, usually no more than 2 weeks. It was also used for digestive complaints, stimulating bile, improving appetite, easing bloating. Growing it, wormwood is a hardy perennial, zones 4 through 9. It thrives in poor dry soil and full sun. The mistake people make is overwatering or adding rich compost. This plant doesn't want it. In fact, too much nitrogen makes it floppy and less potent. Who should be cautious? This is not a casual herb. Wormwood should never be used during pregnancy. It's an abortifacient. People with seizure disorders should avoid it entirely due to thujone content. Short-term use under guidance is traditional, but long-term use can cause neurotoxicity. Wormwood is potent. It's bitter. It's not for everyone, but it has earned its place in the herbal canon. Hyssop, Hyssopus officinalis. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. That line from Psalm 51 wasn't just poetic. Hyssop was used in ancient purification rituals, but the monks understood it had real medicinal value, particularly for the lungs. Hyssop was given to people with chronic bronchitis, asthma, and stubborn coughs. The leaves contain volatile oils, primarily pinocamphone and isopenocamphone, that have expectorant and mild antimicrobial properties. It was prepared as a hot tea, sometimes blended with thyme or sage. The flavor is minty, slightly bitter, with a camphoraceous edge. Growing it, hyssop is a Mediterranean perennial, hardy in zones 4 through 9. It wants full sun, well-drained soil, and very little water once established. The mistake people make is planting it in heavy clay or overwatering. This plant evolved in rocky, arid conditions. Who should be cautious? Hyssop essential oil contains ketones that can trigger seizures in high doses. Pregnant women should avoid medicinal amounts. The tea, used moderately, is generally safe, but the concentrated oil is not. Hyssop is still used by herbalists today, and it's one of the plants that connects us directly to biblical traditions. 9. Elecampane, Inula helenium. Now we're getting into the heavy hitters. Elecampane root was one of the most prized respiratory remedies in the medieval pharmacopoeia. This tall, sunflower-like plant has roots that, when dried and powdered, smell like violets and taste like a mix of honey and camphor. It was used for deep, wet coughs, the kind that settle in the chest and won't budge. Elecampane contains inulin, a prebiotic fiber, and allantoilactone, a compound with expectorant and antimicrobial effects. Monks would dig the roots in autumn, slice them, dry them slowly, and then prepare them as a decoction or grind them into honey to make an electuary, a thick, spoonable medicine. Growing it, Elecampane is a hardy perennial, zones 3 through 8. It wants full sun and rich, moist soil. This is one of the few monastery herbs that actually likes moisture. The mistake people make is not giving it space. This plant can reach 6 feet tall and spread wide. It's not for small gardens. Who should be cautious? Elecampane can cause allergic reactions in people sensitive to the Asteraceae family. Pregnant women should avoid it. In large doses, it can cause nausea or vomiting. This is one of those plants that modern herbalists still regard with deep respect. It's not mild, it's not subtle, but when you need it, nothing else quite compares. 8. Rue, Ruta graveolens. Rue is one of those plants that makes you understand why herbalism requires knowledge, not just enthusiasm. In monastery gardens, rue was grown near entrances, partly for its purported ability to ward off plague. It didn't, but also because it was a powerful medicinal herb used for circulatory issues, eye strain, and menstrual regulation. Rue contains rutin, a flavonoid that strengthens capillary walls. It was prepared very carefully as a weak tea or tincture, always in small doses. Growing it, rue grows in zones 4 through 9. It wants full sun and well-drained soil. The mistake people make is brushing against it carelessly. Rue sap is phototoxic. It causes painful skin blisters when exposed to sunlight. Always wear gloves when handling it. Who should be cautious? Rue is an abortifacient and should never be used during pregnancy. It's also hepatotoxic in large amounts. This is not a beginner's herb. Respect it or don't grow it. Monks knew how to use rue safely. Most modern gardeners should probably just admire it from a distance. 7. Betony, Stachys officinalis. Sell your coat and buy Betony. That was an Old English proverb, and it tells you how valued this plant was. Betony was considered a cure-all in monastery medicine. It was used for headaches, anxiety, digestive complaints, and wounds. While modern research is limited, Betony does contain tannins, alkaloids, and glycosides that have mild sedative and anti-inflammatory properties. The most common preparation was tea, leaves and flowers steeped for 10 minutes. The flavor is earthy, slightly bitter, but not unpleasant. Growing it, Betony is a shade-tolerant perennial, zones 4 through 8. It prefers moist, well-drained soil and can handle partial shade better than most medicinal herbs. The mistake people make is expecting fast growth. Betony is slow to establish, but long-lived once settled. Who should be cautious? Betony is generally safe, but very large amounts can cause stomach upset. Pregnant women should avoid medicinal doses due to its historical use for stimulating labor. Betony isn't flashy, but it's steady, reliable, and deeply rooted in Western herbal tradition. Yarrow, Achillea millefolium. Yarrow is named after Achilles, who allegedly used it to staunch the wounds of his soldiers. In monastery infirmaries, yarrow was the first-line treatment for bleeding, internal and external. Cut your hand with a scythe, crushed yarrow leaves applied directly. Heavy menstrual bleeding, yarrow tea. Nosebleed, yarrow-soaked cloth. The plant contains achillene, an alkaloid that promotes blood clotting, along with flavonoids and volatile oils with anti-inflammatory effects. Growing it, yarrow grows almost anywhere, zones 3 through 9, and thrives on neglect. Full sun, poor soil, no fertilizer. The mistake people make is overwatering or planting it in rich soil. It becomes leggy and less potent. Who should be cautious? Yarrow is in the Asteraceae family, so people with ragweed allergies should be cautious. It's also a uterine stimulant. Avoid during pregnancy. If you're on blood thinners, talk to your doctor before using yarrow internally. Yarrow is one of the most useful plants you can grow. Period. 5. Comfrey, Symphytum officinal. Comfrey was called knit bone for a reason. When someone broke a bone, sprained an ankle, or tore a ligament, comfrey poultices were applied. The plant contains allantoin, a compound that stimulates cell proliferation and tissue repair. Monks would mash fresh leaves into a paste or make a salve with the roots and animal fat. Modern studies confirm that topical comfrey accelerates healing of bruises, sprains, and even bone fractures. Growing it, comfrey is nearly indestructible, zones 3 through 9. It wants full sun to partial shade and tolerates almost any soil. The mistake people make is not containing it. Comfrey spreads aggressively through root fragments. Plant it where you want it forever. Who should be cautious? Never ingest comfrey. It contains pyrrolizidine alkaloids that are hepatotoxic. Topical use on intact skin is safe, but don't apply it to open wounds. The skin can heal over too quickly, trapping infection. Comfrey is powerful, respect the boundaries, and it's one of the best topical healing herbs available. 4. Valerian, Valeriana officinalis. If you've ever struggled with insomnia, you've probably heard of valerian. But what most people don't know is that valerian root was one of the most important nervines in monastery medicine. It was given to people suffering from anxiety, panic, sleeplessness, and even epileptic seizures. Valerian contains valerianic acid and other compounds that interact with GABA receptors in the brain, the same pathway targeted by medications like Valium. The effect is calming, but not sedating in a heavy way. Monks would dig the roots in autumn, dry them slowly, the smell is distinctive, and prepare tinctures or decoctions. Growing it, valerian grows in zones 4 through 9. It prefers moist soil and can handle partial shade. The mistake people make is not harvesting enough root mass. You need substantial roots for medicine, and it takes 2 to 3 years to develop. Who should be cautious? Valerian can interact with sedative medications and alcohol. Some people experience paradoxical stimulation instead of relaxation. Pregnant women should avoid it. Valerian isn't magic, but after centuries of use, there's a reason it's still in every herbalist's toolkit. 3. Sage, Salvia officinalis. Why should a man die while sage grows in his garden? That was a medieval proverb that reveals how deeply sage was trusted. In monastery gardens, sage was used for sore throats, mouth ulcers, excessive sweating, and digestive complaints. Modern research confirms it has antimicrobial, astringent, and antioxidant properties. It contains rosmarinic acid, thujone, and camphor. Sage tea was the most common preparation, hot, strong, and gargled or sipped. Growing it, sage thrives in zones 5 through 9. It wants full sun, well-drained soil, and minimal water once established. The mistake people make is overwatering or planting in heavy clay. Sage rots easily in wet conditions. Who should be cautious? In culinary amounts, sage is safe. In medicinal doses, strong tea daily, pregnant women should avoid it due to thujone content. People with seizure disorders should also be cautious. Sage is one of those herbs that bridges cooking and medicine so seamlessly. Most people don't realize they're using a monastery remedy. 2. St. John's wort, Hypericum perforatum, for depression, melancholy, and what medieval physicians called sorrowful spirits. St. John's wort was unmatched. This bright yellow flowering plant was harvested at midsummer, specifically around the feast of St. John the Baptist, and prepared as oil or tincture. The flowers contain hypericin and hyperforin, compounds that have genuine antidepressant effects. Modern clinical trials show St. John's wort is as effective as some pharmaceutical antidepressants for mild to moderate depression, with fewer side effects. Monks would infuse fresh flowers in olive oil for weeks, creating a deep red oil used for nerve pain, burns, and wounds. Internally, it was taken as a tincture. Growing it, St. John's wort grows in zones 5 through 9. It prefers full sun and tolerates poor soil. The mistake people make is not harvesting flowers at their peak. Wait until they're fully open. Who should be cautious? This is critical. St. John's wort interacts with many medications, including birth control, antidepressants, blood thinners, and chemotherapy drugs. Talk to your doctor before using it. It's also phototoxic in high doses. St. John's wort is powerful. It works, but it requires knowledge and caution. 1. Angelica, Angelica archangelica, the crown jewel, the pinnacle of monastery medicine. Angelica was so revered, legend says an angel revealed it to a monk during a plague outbreak. Whether that's true or not, the fact remains, Angelica was considered the most powerful protective and healing herb in the medieval pharmacopoeia. It was used during epidemics for digestive cramps, respiratory infections, and as a general tonic. The roots contain coumarins, volatile oils, and bitter compounds that stimulate digestion and have antimicrobial properties. Monks prepared Angelica as a distilled liqueur, chartreuse and Benedictine both contain it, or as a root decoction. Growing it, Angelica is biennial or short-lived perennial, zones 3 through 8. It wants rich, moist soil and partial shade. The mistake people make is letting it dry out. This plant likes consistent moisture. Also, it's massive, up to 6 feet tall. Who should be cautious? Angelica is phototoxic. Don't handle the sap before sun exposure. Pregnant women should avoid it. It can also interact with blood thinners. Angelica isn't common. It's not easy to grow. But if you're serious about connecting with monastery herbal tradition, this is the one to master. These 15 plants aren't relics. They're not folklore curiosities locked behind museum glass. They're living links to a tradition that survived wars, plagues, and the collapse of entire civilizations. And the remarkable thing is this: many of them are now being validated by modern science. The compounds monks couldn't name, we can isolate and study. The effects they observed empirically, we can measure clinically. But here's what I want you to understand. These plants aren't miracle cures. They're tools. They work slowly, gently, and in partnership with your body. They're not replacements for modern medicine. They're complements, allies. If you're dealing with serious illness, chronic pain, or mental health crises, see a doctor. Use these herbs as part of a broader approach to wellness, not as a substitute for professional care. But if you're interested in growing your own medicine, in connecting with history, in learning how to steward plants that have healed humans for over 1,000 years, you now have a starting point. The monks didn't write everything down, but they planted seeds, and those seeds are still here.